Good morning, everyone, and welcome to PR News Live. I'm Nicole Schumann, Senior Editor of PR News, and I'd like to thank you all for joining us. If you have any questions today, just pop them in the comments as usual, and we'll get to them throughout the chat. And today I'd like to welcome our special guest, Jay Winuk, founder of, make sure I'm pronouncing it right, Winuk?
Winuk, yes, very good.
Winuk Communications, and co-founder of 9/11 Day with David Payne. Now, 9/11 Day originated and continues to lead the September 11th National Day of Service and Remembrance, one of only 2 days of service recognized under federal law and presidential proclamation since 2009. And along the way, they and their team have garnered the support and participation of thousands of companies, nonprofits, municipalities, universities, faith-based organizations, corporations, U.S. presidents, and other political leaders, and countless others for a really, really, really good cause. And Jay has also spent time at Burson Marsteller, Golan Harris, and Radio City Productions during his PR tenure. So welcome, Jay. We're happy to have you with us here today.
Thank you, and thank you for that very kind introduction.
Now, first I'd like to chat about an article we featured this week in PR News written by my colleague, Sophie Merowitz. With everything going on in the world for PR people, pitching and timing of that pitch can be somewhat daunting. Ida disrupted the entire East and Gulf Coast last week, including a major metropolitan area. Labor Day included the traditional day off for many, but also acknowledged unemployment and union battles. And this weekend marks 20 years since 9/11, a day that should be recognized for many reasons, but still opens a lot of old wounds. So if working in PR is your job, what is one to do? So, Jay, you're a veteran PR professional. What is your advice for those who still need to pitch this week and during these tough times?
Well, it's a challenging time, certainly, but the news is the news, and journalists still need the help of PR people to uncover different angles and important stories. We have been faced with this challenge every year around 9/11 because of the work that we do with 9/11 Day. But it's about sensitivity. It's about trying not to be too commercial or exploitive or anything that would smack of insincerity, and not being sensitive to what's happening in the world. It is a challenge, of course, if you are trying to advocate for a story that is not linked to one of the major stories that's happening in the news. And it seems to be, that there are major stories overwhelming the coverage every day. But I think, it's a time when there are traumatic and really serious news events happening. It's a time to take a deep breath, step back, and make sure if you're pitching something that it is with that sensitivity in mind. But the news goes on, and when it comes to pitching things, sometimes the timing is not fortuitous, but you still have to do your job. So number one is, I would say, really be sensitive to the moment.
Great. I'm sorry. Okay. I think one of the points that Gene Grabowski makes in the article is looking also at local and niche types of publications. I mean, local news is still very important to a lot of people. Niche publications are always looking for things, to the time that may not necessarily have to do with these big disasters and different things. So I think that's a good strategy.
Yeah, I think so too. One of the benefits of working in public relations in today's times is there's so much media out there. There's so many opportunities. There are so many niche outlets to target. At the same time, it's more and more competitive too. But there's opportunity out there. Just be crafty in your approach and sensitive to the moment.
Great. So much for now we'll turn to learning about your career as a communicator and how 9/11 impacted your own life and trajectory. Would you care to share your story with us and how 9/11 Day came to be?
Sure. I do, as you know, have a direct connection to 9/11. My brother, Glenn Winuk, was a partner at the law firm Holland and Knight, and their offices were located just 2 blocks from where the World Trade Center stood. But for 20 years, Glenn was a volunteer firefighter and an EMT in our hometown of Jericho, Long Island. And he was specially certified in building collapse rescue training. When the towers were hit, Glenn helped evacuate the Holland and Knight law offices and then headed on foot into the South Tower to save lives. And he perished when the South Tower collapsed. So I wanted to do something in honor of Glenn's great sacrifice and in honor of all of those who were directly affected by 9/11. And so did my colleague and friend, David Payne. You know, we had worked together years before at Burson Marsteller and knew each other and kept in touch between New York and California, where he was based. David called me asking me what I thought about trying to create a grassroots movement that reflected the way the country responded by doing good deeds, acts large and small. Everybody came together. We focused on our common humanity. We put aside our differences. And I thought that made some sense. You know, it reflected the way that Glenn lived his life as a giving person. And it was very meaningful, I think, to me. Excuse me while I plug in my computer. It was very meaningful to me to try to create a movement like that. So that was the genesis of it. But of course, we had no staff and no budget and no plan in place. But we're a couple of PR guys who knew how to get the job done, or at least how to spread the message. And so we were off and running.
And that's one of the great things about PR is just the power it has to create change and get different people involved. How long did it take you to really get rolling with the organization, and what were some of the ways that you reached out to people?
Well, I'll tell you, it took a while to get going. You know, it was a grassroots initiative. The first thing we did was we met with the leaders of all the 9/11 organizations that had surfaced, made sure that it was comfortable with the 9/11 community to try to establish this ritual in honor of those who were lost and injured and sickened, and to honor those who rose in service. They universally accepted it. They were behind it. The 9/11 organizations we met with were, yes, this is a good ritual to try to establish. So we knew we were on the right path as far as the 9/11 community was concerned. We had a goal of trying to turn it into a national day of service. We walked the halls of Congress and met with, senior staff of the White House for like 5 years, but eventually built up enough support for the idea to have it recognized under federal law as a national day of service in 2009. And that gave us great momentum moving forward. So, of course, we and many others were very pleased about that. And, we just kept raising the money, just enough, it seemed, each year to keep going and to plan the following year. But it took hold. It really did take hold with the nation at large, to the point where now 9/11 Day, as we refer to it, is the largest annual day of charitable engagement in the nation.
Yeah, and the website is beautiful. It provides a platform for anyone who is looking to find some sort of place to volunteer. I took a look at it and signed up for something on Saturday. I know a lot of people are, it comes every year, and people are, just kind of wondering where to place their emotions and their strengths. And, I think your brother was a great inspiration, and I think a great, linchpin to launch something like this. So congratulations on that.
Well, thank you. For me personally, of course, it's a labor of love. For my brother, it reflected the way he lived his life. It reflected the way he perished in service to other people. And so, look, I and David and our colleagues, we have a front row seat every 9/11 to this extraordinary outpouring of compassion from people all over the country and around the world who step forward to do good deeds for people on 9/11 each year. So we're very pleased with how it's gone. Thanks.
Great. Now, you lived during 9/11. and worked in PR during 9/11. I'm just curious, what was it like working then, and what has changed in communications over the past 20 years? I mean, a lot, obviously, but
Well, it's a good question. Certainly technology has played a major role. It has really evolved in the 20 years since we started this initiative. Communicating over the internet has gotten much more robust. Social media much more robust. The breadth of media outlets out there really, it has grown exponentially, and so that has helped us build this initiative in ways we couldn't have imagined 20 years ago. So I'd say that's probably the thing that has changed most over the last 20 years as it relates to our advocacy for this National Day of Service and Remembrance.
have there been this I'm sure last year in regards to COVID and
I'm sorry, you're breaking up a little bit. Say that again.
yes. Have there been challenges this year? I'm sure last year as well in terms of COVID and service and what people can do in coming together.
Yeah, last year, like so many other organizations and individuals, of course, we were directly impacted by COVID. We're in the business of encouraging people to get out and volunteer and do good deeds. And, a lot of that went away. The meal packs, the large scale meal packs, for example, that we stage all over the country to bring volunteers together for people who are at risk of hunger, all those had to be canceled last 9/11. And so many other activities that we had planned. But, we had anticipated it and started putting plans in place a few months before if we had to cancel a lot of our activities. And so we built a website and a program called 9/11 Day at Home, in which we presented to people who visited our 911day.org website like 50 different ways that they could do good deeds and participate in the observance right from their desktops, their phones, their tablets. They didn't have to leave their homes at all to engage in doing good deeds in honor of the day. And that was really successful. I mean, it took off. Millions and millions of people wound up doing good deeds right from their chair. And so, we pivoted there, as so many other kinds of organizations and businesses and initiatives had to. And to their credit, our corporate sponsors supported us through that, even though they couldn't, for example, send their employees to volunteer events that we stage as they normally would. They recognized the importance of continuing this tradition and giving people a platform and a vehicle in order to engage in service.
Are you still doing some of that as well?
I'm sorry, you were breaking up. Say that again, please.
Are you still continuing that this year as well?
Yeah. In fact, we just launched a new website this week, and we're continuing to build that out with all kinds of functionality. And the best way for people to find out how to engage in service is to go to our website, 911day.org. It's a great starting place for people everywhere to participate in either self-directed or organized activities from their employers, from their local municipalities, faith-based groups, educational institutions, other nonprofits. There's a real robust effort coast to coast for 9/11 Day this year for the 20th anniversary, as there should be.
That's amazing. I was going to ask you anything different that you are doing this year for 9/11 Day to mark the. It's hard. This is a question for a PR person, especially someone so close to 9/11. Should we call it anniversary? Should we call it, something else? I mean, it's hard to decide the wording that should be used even.
Nicole, you ask a very important question. And I use the word anniversary because most people do refer to it as an anniversary, but There's something celebratory affiliated with that word, connected to that word, and certainly this isn't a celebration. We have used the word anniversary because that's what people understand, but really we're looking at as a 20-year remembrance. It continues to be both a look back at those events and the tragedy and the lessons that we learned from it, and those who we need to pay tribute to who are directly affected and who suffered or were lost. But part of our observance that we began, in which the nation participates in, is also about looking forward. But to get to your other point in terms of what we have special for this 20-year remembrance going on, we are back to staging these large-scale meal packs in 10 cities around the country, in which hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of meals will be packed by thousands and thousands of volunteers. We're doing this in a COVID-safe way in each venue, so fewer volunteers, a little bit more spread out, but the meals are needed. There's a lot of people hurting coming out of this pandemic and are still hurting, and so that's one thing our organization is doing. We launched a national PSA campaign this week that featured 23 people from the 9/11 community, all representing different factions, family members, first responders, injured, to share the message about unity and compassion and coming together again now as we did then. And we sure need to focus on more unity the way things are right now. So that campaign, we really think people are going to be moved by it, and it'll be on TV and radio all over the country. Morgan Freeman did the voiceovers for the radios, and Bruce Springsteen graciously allowed us to use The Rising as the soundtrack for the TV spots. So we're very pleased with how that came out and the participation of people from the 9/11 community. We're doing a program with World Central Kitchen where we're getting meals purchased from independent restaurants, which are also hurting around the country, and having those meals delivered to first responders as a way to say thank you to them for the work they do to keep us safe. We launched a major education program with Discovery Education to teach kids about 9/11 through the lens of service and civic engagement. So we have a lot going on, and we're very pleased with how it's going so far.
I was thinking about the generation. Saw a story yesterday about Gen Z kids that have been born, really they weren't here. They don't understand the history so much. And, this generation is now being, they're entering into the workforce, and a lot of them are entering into communications positions, whether it's digital or, traditional PR. For young adults who live through this history, what do you suggest for them, in terms of working with their older colleagues, and just learning about the day in general?
Yeah, as it relates to 9/11 specifically, you're asking? Well, that's a very important question, Nicole, because from the outset, when we established this observance, it was about future generations that we were really focused on, because we felt like people in the future who did not have direct memories of 9/11 or who weren't alive at the time really need to understand the other side of the story, not just about the attacks, but about how compassionately and productively people came together in response to the attacks. And there's always going to be traumatic events, national challenges. That's just the nature of things. We're living through that now with the pandemic in an extended way, a year and a half long, and who knows when we'll really come out of it all. But in order to get over traumatic events, people need to learn the lessons from 9/11 about how impactful it can be when we work together. Sure, we have our differences, but in the end, we're all Americans and we're all human beings wherever we are in the world. And that messaging and that mindset, I think, is really important. Throughout the history of our country, when major things had to be accomplished in response to tragic times, it has been accomplished because people came together and we focused on the task at hand and not on our differences. And so that's what this observance is about. It's what we want young people to understand in the future. And secondly, we want young people to understand that they can impact the world around them. And a good idea is worth pursuing. You know, David and I and our colleagues, we didn't know that this idea was going to result in the nation's largest day of service, but we kept working at it. We had some good fortune and some luck along the way. We stuck with it. And here we are. There's still a lot more work to do, but, you know, a good idea is worth exploring and worth pursuing. You know, things don't happen on their own. So you need more than a good idea, but young people really need to understand that they can impact the world around them and to go for it.
Yeah, I'm hoping so. It seems to be the trend with a lot of younger people on social media. You know, you look at the young Greta and her work in climate change. And,
Yes.
you know, there's a lot of just inspirational young people out there. And I do think putting forth that positive messaging that from tragedy can come something greater. I mean, you know, look at this day and look at all the service that's going to come out of it and all the people that have been impacted that really, you know, makes a difference. So I'm sure your brother would be very proud.
Well, yeah, it's nice of you to say thank you. And I think you're right, by the way. You know, we get to witness and engage with young people all over the country, and they are so energized. They bring such enthusiasm to this observance. They bring such energy and creativity. They want to learn about it. They want to engage. They want to use this annual ritual as an opportunity to impact the world around them. So I just hope that continues, and it's our goal, and we're putting the pieces in place to make sure that this is handed off from generation to generation.
Well, that's wonderful. And assuming you'll be in New York this weekend for the event.
I'm sorry, you're breaking up a little bit.
I'm assuming you'll be in New York this weekend for the events going on.
Yeah, I'm in New York right now. I've been here for some days, and we'll be here through the anniversary and a little bit beyond, because there are a lot of activities that we are, of course, planning, some of which I touched on earlier, and other activities that I will participate in that others are planning. So I'm almost always in Manhattan on 9/11 because of the work that we do, and because I, of course, like to go to the memorial service at Ground Zero. But there are other places I'd like to be as well, but I can't be, including in our hometown, where the Jericho Fire Department does a really nice procession from the department over to a park that's named in Glenn's honor. His friends and other family members go to that, but I'm not able to. But maybe one day. But yes, I am in New York now, and will be for the foreseeable future.
Great. Well, we're hoping for a beautiful weekend for everything going on and for the volunteers. And like I said, if you're interested in volunteering, anyone out there in the public, check out 911day.org, 911day.org. If you want to sign up, there's still time. And thank you, Jay. We really appreciate you coming on. I know you're very busy this week. And thank you for all that you've done for this community and for communications as well. It really is appreciated.
Well, thank you for your kind words, and it's my pleasure to speak with you this morning.
Great. And thank you to everybody watching us this morning for taking the time out of their busy schedule. I'd like to let you know next week on September 15th, we'll be featuring Jim Nickerson and my colleague Sophie Merowitz talking about social audio and what to expect at the upcoming Social Shakeup event. We'll be down in Atlanta in a couple weeks, so looking forward to that. So we'll see you then, and stay well.